Peace and Black Power family. Harlem educator, author, and activist, the Black Liberation Coach, Brother Agyei Tyehimba. I just want to take a few moments to welcome you to Harlem Liberation School's YouTube channel. The Harlem Liberation School was started in 2016 by myself and my queen, and we basically saw that there was a lack of foundational Black political education going on in Harlem. We're not going to get up from under white supremacy without knowing how oppression works, how it affects and impacts in our community, the ways in which we internalize our own oppression and engage in self-defeating behavior and thinking, and our socio-political movements and our very important individuals and organizations throughout our history who played a leading role in fighting against and resisting and disrupting white supremacy. So Harlem Liberation School was founded as a Black political education center for adults. Because education is not just relegated to children. Adults need education. It's those of us adults who maybe when we were kids did not get that foundational Africana studies of Black political education. The things we need to know to be free and to fight effectively for our liberation. And so that's what we're here to do. We hope that you will come through, check us out, look at our videos, like them, comment on them, and share them. Peace and Black Power. Peace and Black Power family. It's your Harlem educator, author, and activist, the Black Liberation Coach, Brother Agyei Tyehimba, and I'm filming live on location in that wonderful historical and political village of Harlem, New York. I hope everybody's at peace while preparing simultaneously for war, because when you're being warred against, the only logical response is to war back, regardless of your religious affiliation, your spiritual beliefs, and your gender, and all whatever that. When people are warring against you, you owe it to yourself, a community, to war back. That said, family, thank you for joining us here at Harlem Liberation School on our YouTube channel. Certainly, we want to encourage you to keep coming back. I'm going to put this particular message up, thanking you for joining us, encouraging you to like the videos, to leave comments, and certainly to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Brother Jardea, we want to say peace and Black Power right back to you, good brother. Thank you for coming out and supporting. And by the way, your posts are very insightful, man. I dig them posts that you put up, my brother. Just what on the right frequency for our people, just what we need. So we appreciate you for that. Want to certainly thank the Queen Bee. She hasn't commented, but I think she may be checking us out, participating in this particular broadcast. Sister Brenda in the building. And I'd like to get started. I see there's quite a few people. I think some of you are looking through Facebook, and a few of you are looking through YouTube. I want to thank you, and I want to get started. What we're talking about today, family, is something I think is very important, and I'm going to bring it up. 5 challenges for nation builders. Now, by nation builders, we mean quite clearly those of us in the community that are nationalists, or even those of us who may not proclaim ourselves to be nationalists, but we recognize Black people as representing a nation, and we're fighting to create institutions and to position ourselves through organizing cooperatively owned economic enterprises to create our self-dependence and self-reliance and self-determination, sovereignty for our people, right? Nation builders, a lot of times we get caught up in the rhetoric. We need a nation. I'm a nationalist. That means we're going to build a nation. Yeah. But you know, family, building a nation is not easy work. If you just study the African independence movement and see what happened in Nigeria with Julius Nyerere, who was a teacher. He'd never run a government before. He was a teacher, and he got involved with politics a few years before the African independence movement, and now he's the prime minister of an entire country, right? So that's not easy, family, for most people. Patrice Lumumba was a postal worker. He had no experience running a nation, so I want people to put some of this in context, that it's important that we not just have the political rhetoric, but that we're constantly looking at that rhetoric to see, is it consistent? Is it accurate? When we say building a nation, what will that entail? and what are the challenges we will face in building a nation. That's very important. And so I'm going to try to highlight that as succinctly as possible. I think I'm going to write an article that will be a lot more of a scholarly article that would be a lot more in depth. We'll have citations so that people can go and kind of do their own research on it. But for now, let's get into nitty gritty. Number one of the key challenges that nation builders will face, have always faced, and will continue to face in this modern world is that of tribalism. And by tribalism, we mean the tendency for people. It's like cliquism at the highest level. You know, you got your group, your ethnic group, or your religious group, or your political group, or your fraternity, or your sorority, and y'all rock together, but you don't rock with anybody else. You're just rocking with your fraternity or sorority, your ethnic group, your political group, your religious affiliation, and you forget that we're African people, New African or Black people, who are all suffering disproportionately compared to the rest of the population. People who don't give a damn what fraternity or sorority you're in, don't give a damn what religion you affiliate with, what sexuality you identify with. They're oppressing you because you're identified as New African or Black or African, right? And so the problem with the tribalism is that when you're forming a nation, you need to create what's called a national identity. You need people to be able to be proud of this nation, whether it's Wakanda or Ghana or whatever the nation is. When people, there needs to be a flag and a national anthem, right? All of these things are part of cultivating a culture, a sense of national identity that the citizens of this nation identify with the nation. They expect certain things from the nation, and they're in compliance with their nation. They're willing to defend their nation. That's why the white man had you putting your hand over your heart saying that Pledge of Allegiance every day in elementary school, right? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, right? That you give your allegiance to a nation, hopefully a nation that you love and you respect and with whom you're in agreement, right? So tribalism gets in the way of our ability to establish a national identity. Because while we're talking about what we're doing for our nation, you have different little sects, and I mean sects of people who are resisting that because they're so isolated in their bubble of religion, sexuality, politics, or ethnicity. And it's hard to get through to them. In Wakanda, you saw that there was a brother named Jabari was kind of the chief of a different tribe, and he was kind of adversarial, right, with the Black Panther and his particular nation, right? That's tribalism. This you talking to people and they don't want to relinquish. They see it as they're relinquishing their authority or they're submitting to some other leader. They're unwilling to compromise, to give up a few things so that for the greater good, that gets in the way of nation building. So those of us and you who are nation builders have to have some strategy and give serious thought to how do you deal with the tribalism that exists? How do you neutralize the tribalism? How do you get our people on one general page, right? Okay. Number two, I would say is a challenge for nation builders is fundamentalism. We can define fundamentalism as an exceptionally rigid and overly literal interpretation of, it could be a holy book, it could be a political doctrine, it could be anything like that, but it's where people interpret it very rigidly and very literally and leave no room for nuance or interpretation. And what tends to happen with that, because I know some of you think, oh no, you got to be rigid. That shows your allegiance. No. Rigid, being rigid shows that you're rigid. It doesn't show that, and inflexible, and possibly the type of person that can't promote real change that's going to be lasting and sustained, because you have these blinders on, and all you see is your ideology, and you almost become a slave to the ideology. Fundamentalism is a very devastating thing in our community, and if you're trying to build a nation, fundamentalism gets in the way. Why? Because the fundamentalist nationalists will say, "Where's that brother's dashiki? What you doing in here, sister, with that blonde hair? What you doing in here with them contacts? What you doing in here with the? You got a white name? What? You don't? You better change it." Very rigid, because in their estimation, to be nationalist means you must do A, B, C, D, and you know what? That is not true. Those are personal preferences that may have meaning for you as a person. I changed my names back in 1991, but I don't expect everybody to do that. And by the way, those of us who changed our names to African names, that does not give us some sort of divine providence. Like we figured it out, we got it all figured out, and we're better than anyone else. We changed our names for our particular reasons. But there are people who kept their so-called European names, and they may be just as African as we are in their consciousness. All this other stuff is, cosmetic. The real thing is your intentionality and your consistent deeds and actions and thoughts and how you treat people, building institutions, the planks of nationalism. But nowhere in there does it say you must change your name or you can't be down. You must wear mud cloth or kente cloth. That stuff we throw into it, right? Okay. So the fundamentalism gets in the way. We can't get people into a national identity when we piss so many different segments of our community off because we're coming with a narrow definition of nationalism. We're forgetting the goal isn't to get people to subscribe to our ideology. The goal isn't to get people to wear more African clothes, speak more African languages. That's great, but the goal is liberation. The goal is liberation. And let me remind you, if you take a nation like the United States, they got all types of people, right? You got some people that believe in violence, some people that are pacifists. You got some people that believe in Christianity, Buddhism, Sikhism, and some people who are atheists or agnostic. But they're all citizens of the nation. So we're going to have to be very clear that when we create an active nation, because right now we're a dormant nation, we're inactive as a nation, although we have all the components of a nation. When we become an active nation, we should be very clear. It's not going to be just one type of black person, new African in that nation. It won't be homogeneous. It's going to be heterogeneous. There'll be some Africans that subscribe to a version of Christianity. There might be some people who are Muslim. There might be some people who are Buddhist. There might be people who don't believe in a deity. But they will still be part of our nation, fam. And if we're coming from a fundamentalist point of view, we will not be able to create nor sustain a nation that embodies the diversity of our people. And it's very important that we not be like the white man with this, family. As much as we talk about the white man this, white man that, we go around and replicate and duplicate everything he does. The nationalists, right? We're not supposed to be oppressive to the people. That doesn't mean we let them do whatever they want without recourse, but it means that we give them the freedom to be, so long as they're not injurious to the other citizens in the nation, right? We also don't have unrealistic expectations of our citizens of our nation that everybody needs to be in the military. There's millions of people in the United States. What percentage of them in the military? Very small percentage. Every citizen doesn't have to be in the military. We don't want every citizen in the military. Some people are out of shape, can't shoot, don't listen to instruction. So we don't want everybody, right? The military is a very small group of people who specialize for that, right? But when we talk about building a nation, sometimes we're very impractical. We're like, oh no, everybody can be down. No. That's not how nations work. So a lot of when I go through this, the reason I'm thinking like this myself is because I've read some books on the challenges of building a nation. I've read history on the challenges. I teach U.S. history, the challenges that this nation went through to be. All of the challenges they fought over it was hard for them to govern themselves. There was a lot of stuff. They didn't have experience with military. It was a lot of stuff they had to go through. They had some people who were loyal to Britain, and they had to try to convince them that Britain was the enemy. It was a lot, family. So when you study nations, right, and get away from that political rhetoric, go see the truth for yourself. Do your own study. You're going to see, wow, All these nations had serious challenges, and some nations did not overcome those challenges, and they did not actually become cohesive nations. So the fundamentalism has to go. We can't. It's just like these white people in the judiciary, the Supreme Court, that are overly strict and literal with their interpretation of the Constitution. Now these so-called founding fathers couldn't possibly have imagined the country that they were helping to build 275 years later. They couldn't possibly have imagined that. So yeah, there's certain things they did not provide for specifically, but they left room for thinking, rational people to be able to make good judgments. They left room in that through making a method by which you could amend or change the Constitution, and a method by which you could interpret it. Some people interpret it so rigidly, family, that it's oppressive. And we don't want to be like white folk in that way. We cannot afford to be fundamentalists. Fundamentalists, by the way, when you're rigid like that and you have this overly strict interpretation, it tends to make you judgmental. It tends to make you punitive. Fundamentalist regimes start out, first thing you know, they're imprisoning people that are their citizens, and the citizens' only crime was saying, why do we have to have this curfew? Now they're in prison. Or they didn't wear their hijab. So now the poor woman is thrown in jail. It's ridiculous. We cannot do that. And there is no God, deity, or divine source that would be all loving and gracious and that would support or allow for this type of tyranny to go on. Are not liberators, and nation builders should never be tyrannical. And fundamentalism leads straight to tyranny. There's only one way to do things, one way to think, and we can't afford that. Let me take a quick pause for the cause. I see you got some comments. I'm gonna put some things up. Brother Jade is in the building. He's giving some peace and power. Thanks. Liberation is the goal. That's right. And yesterday, everyone should have the option to be trained in defense. But what I'm trying to get people to see is, in a real nation, all the citizens aren't in the military. Right? Some citizens work regular jobs, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. On the weekends, they drinking the beer, they playing chess, hanging with their lady or their man, or whatever, they're playing sports or watching sports. But the vast majority of the constituency is never in the military. So it's just my way of trying to get people to be realistic about how we look at this concept of a nation. That's all. Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's get back to some of these other things very quickly, so I don't take up too much of your time. Number 3, the challenge for nation builders: the failure to develop effective alliances. Many times we push political rhetoric, and I'm constantly going to be pushing back on my beloved nationalist Pan-Africanist community. Just because so-and-so said it, just because so-and-so wrote it, that doesn't mean that it's beyond our critique. It doesn't, right? Times change, situations change. What was relevant in 1920 may not be relevant in the 21st century. We have the right to constantly deconstruct things and analyze them. One of the things that people often say is, we don't need alliances. We don't have no friends. And they'll quote Baba John Henrik Clark, because he did a whole speech. We have no friends. You can't trust these people. That is correct. He said that. And he's correct that we have no friends. But we can have allies. An ally is not a friend. A friend gonna have your back no matter what. Hopefully, will not betray you, will not reveal your secrets. Hopefully. And if they do, they'll apologize and try to do it again. An ally is no pretense of they're your friend. Alliances are strategic and tactical. We're weak. Let's say we don't have military training, right? Or we have military training, but we have no weapons. And there's a group in our vicinity or in our proximity that does have the thing we need. And it so happens that we have great educational institutions, curriculums, and they need that and they don't have it. So we form an alliance so that we can give them the things, provide the things they need and don't have, and vice versa. And there's many times alliances don't last forever, family. Sometimes people get what they want, the war is over or whatever, and those alliances dissolve. This is why the Soviet Union was part of the Allied forces in World War II. They were actually allies with the United States. And then after World War II, they became enemies of the United States. So alliances are not permanent. There is no pretense, no fantasy that we're friends. We are in a transactional relationship. We are rocking together because you got something I need and want, and I got something you need and want. But in the world of politics and nation building, you cannot exist as a nation with no other country that is an ally. You need allies. You need allies for certain material benefits, maybe some intelligence or information, certain skill sets, technology, and you might need allies to protect you from other people in your proximity who are enemies. One of the challenges that we have to resist as nation builders is to think that we can be the only people in world history to create a nation with no allies. That's just not going to happen. That is not going to happen. All right. So we have to get over this idea about we don't need allies. Yes, we do. And you know how you know? Just think of all the things that we need but we don't have. And those areas become room for alliances, for allies, people who do have things we need, right? And then, of course, we have to have something ourselves, a resource, an asset that we provide in exchange or in kind. Okay, that's the way this. I don't know what our reference points are when we talk about nation, but in this world, in this modern day world, that's how it works. You must have some type of strategic allies, or you are almost doomed from the start. Okay, and now we're going to move on to number 4, the fourth challenge of nation builders. And hopefully, I got some people watching this live that are nation builders, that are seeing Black people as a nation and are working diligently and consistently to provide the things that our nation needs. One of the things from talking with people, reading people's posts, reading books, and observing and talking to elders that I think is a challenge for us is our failure to develop infrastructure. Okay, so let me take you through it. We have this revolutionary force. We got a significant proportion of our population fighting in various ways in a revolution, and we win. We win this revolution. Now we got a new nation, right? We celebrate. We have a big Independence Day. We got music. We got balloons and fireworks and people dancing and feasts, right? We having a ball. The next day, we realize, oh man, we need sanitation. Does anybody know? No. Oh. We need agriculture. Does it? Nobody knows about. Oh, okay. We need education. We need curriculums, and we need methodologies of education, and we need scholarship, and we need to know how to right. So when we talk about infrastructure, we're talking about now the day after you won the revolution that people don't seem to think about. Right? We think it's just we're going to win, and everything's going to be a party. And so what I want to just kind of have us think about is what are the things, what do I mean by infrastructure? The things you need for a nation that builds out a nation. Governance and leadership. Who has who here has run a whole nation? Most Africans have been running an organization, let alone a nation. So when we talk about nationalism, somebody in our community, groups of people in our community need to be actively studying, whether it's in study groups, whether it's going and visiting places and meeting with people, or whether it's running for city councils and community boards and school boards. How do we govern? How do we rule? How do we write legislation? How do we lead big operations and outfits. And what you'll find a lot of times if you look at the African independence movement, quite a few of the newly freed countries, like for instance Ghana, they didn't have enough technicians to build that dam that Brother Kwame Nkrumah was trying to do. He had to then hire members of Britain, the very people that colonized Ghana, they just kicked out the country, to come and help Ghana. That puts you in a very bad position. I'm sure you can understand. So if we don't want to be in positions where we got to go back to the white man and hire him and ask him, we just be just behind the revolution. Now we got to go to him and ask him for his help. Then it means that we should be thinking proactively. What are the things the nation needs? And we need to start sending our kids and our people into school around these particular sort of things. So governance and leadership, engineering and science, economics. I think I covered this: building and running effective institutions. What type of institutions? Provide infrastructure: military, hospitals, laboratories, schools, banks and credit unions, museums, libraries, community patrols. All of these things are things that our nation would need, whether we got a nation abroad somewhere or in some territory, or whether we operate as a nation within a nation construct right here in our cities. These are some of the things we need. It's not enough just to fight and win the revolution. What happens the day after? That's how we have to think. Right? Hope y'all are with me now. Hope I ain't putting you all to sleep. This stuff is important. Let me see. I think I got some. Make sure I got the comments. I think Brother Donnie says that the feed is breaking up. Thank you, Brother Donnie. I'm gonna try to work on that. Hopefully everything will be good now. Right? Hey, there's Sister Elena Porter. I said I was just telling the Queen. I said I bet you Elena Porter is gonna be here. I respect that. You know, is that you? If something is your calling in life and this is something that you do, you should be aware of other people who are doing it and you should be present. So very good for you, Sister Elena. Peace, my sister. I hope you're well. And let me go to the last piece. The fifth challenge, at least that I've identified, of nation builders, right? And by challenge, this means these are things that we got to think about before we win or earn our liberation. Before we've done that, these things we have to be working on and have resolved. Because once we have won our liberation, it's too late to be like, okay, so now how do we deal with sanitation? How do we do with agriculture? You can't do that. So the fifth thing I have identified as, hold on 1 second. Oh yes, energy dependence. Now this is something people don't think about, but you got a new nation. You just beat the white man. He's retreated. Your people celebrate, like I said, partying and all that, music, fireworks. But the next day, who's going to make sure that every household in our nation has electricity? Who's going to make sure we got oil or gas? That we have the science of collecting and converting and utilizing solar energy or the wind or water. Right? It's too late once you got the Revolution 1 to do that, because now you got to go to, usually a lot of the people who've mastered that are the people you just fought and defeated. And you don't want to have to go to them for everything. So when we talk about our kids going to college, I'm going to college. These are things we should raise in our families, in our churches, in our mosques and synagogues. These are some of the, when the kids are trying to figure out what I want to do, I don't want to be an athlete, I don't want to be in the street, I don't want to play ball, what do I do? We should be able to say, well, we need all of these different things. Take your pick based on your skill set and your interest. There's a whole bunch of things: nurses, doctors, physicians, engineers, mechanical and otherwise, teachers, scholars, writers, dramatists, artists, musicians, museum curators, librarians, people that know how to do military, legislators, people that are good at governance and leadership, all of that. But this fifth thing is very key. we have to be thinking about energy. How we want to make sure we're not dependent on our enemies for energy. These are things, family, you will not think about until you don't have it. We go to our households every day, and we so confidently flick up that light switch, just knowing the light's gonna come on in the bathroom. We put in the plug in something, a microwave, whatever. We just know when we push that start button, it's gonna work because we're assuming that we have power or we have energy. But what happens if somebody cuts your power off? And that's typically what would happen if you're fighting against an enemy and they have control of the power. They're not going to give you now. You just beat them. They're going to give you power. So you're going to have people that know how to do that. People that know how to build homes. People that know how to heal the sick. All of that. So energy dependence, oil, gas, electricity, solar. Brother Kaba Kameni, one of my James, he talks a lot about the need to get our kids involved with the science of solar energy. And in fact, in many cities in this country right now, if you have a solar panel and you have the proper equipment that can convert the solar energy, and you can run your own appliances with the solar energy from a solar panel, the actual company here in New York is called Con Ed, gives us gas and electricity and all that, will actually make a deal with you, and you'll pay less on your bill. That's a fact, right? So Brother Cobb is right on it. He's thinking ahead. What are the things we're going to need when we have this territory of our own abroad or right here? Right now, I want to stop there. I went through the 5 things. For those who can't live, I'm going to show them quickly. These are 5 challenges we must overcome: tribalism, fundamentalism, failure to develop effective alliances with other people that meet our mutual needs, right? The failure to develop infrastructure in those various areas that I identified. And then lastly, our the failure to think about how do we have access to energy? What will our energy sources be and how will we access them, right? And that's basically it. Now, I want to make sure I cover Lady Porter said, you know I'm here. That's right, sister. Now I know she says teach Brother Agyei Tyehimba, that falls under development, sustainable development. Yes. And people like Elena are definitely on point with this. Probably people like Brother Ramsey Eunice, probably people like Brother Ishmael Bay, Daniel, I think Rutledge or Gutledge is his name. Quite a few people, but then there's people who are nationalists who talk about we need a nation, and I don't know if they are thinking like this. Like, what does that mean beyond the rhetoric? So those people who are involved in serious nation building activity, tip our hats to you for doing the work. But we need more people to become engaged and to really to learn. I want to see if I can share something with you. Hold on one second. I want to show, if I can, some resources. So I'm on I'm on Amazon. And I want you to see, if you type in nation building challenges, there's about 232 results over here. First book, The Challenge of Nation Building. That's looking at the U.S. Army from World War II to the Iraq War. Nigeria and the Challenges of Nation Building. Libya, the Nation Building Challenge. The Post-Colonial Challenges of Nation Building through International Engagement in Zimbabwe. So people, listen, the fact that there's over 200 books on this subject is telling you that there are some serious challenges to nation building. And I might add that many people did not, even some of our great leaders, because they're so busy fighting with the Europeans and negotiating and actually involved sometimes in armed struggle, that some people simply did not think about, well, we have people to give us energy, we have access. How do we operate these? Do we know people that know how to operate machinery? basic stuff that you don't think about. Do you know people know how to lead huge organizations? Do you know people know how to write legislation and be able to bring in all these Africans, new Africans that may come from different political persuasions who have disagreements and know how to help them reach consensus without killing each other? So as much as we get on the white man, and we should get on the white man, we should never let him off the hook. Look at the city council meetings in your city. In the cable channels, you can usually look on the local channels, and you can actually see the proceedings of your city council. Look at how they get down. Notice how they're able to accommodate different points of view. They don't let people speak forever and ever. There's a time person that shuts them down. There's a procedure, right? Notice how they get people in the community that are experts on something to testify in hearings to give the governmental body a better understanding of what we mean by what we need in education. They don't know because they're not educated. So what do? They invite actual educators and come into a hearing or whatever the subject is. We need to get examples. We need to start familiarizing ourselves with how some of these things work. That's why I'm a proponent. As a nationalist, a Pan-Africanist, I say, if you want to know how to run stuff, you got to run stuff, family. Run your local PTA, run your, get involved with the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, get involved with something at your church. Get into the habit of getting in positions of leadership. Understand how things are done, how leaders think, which is radically different from how non-leaders think. Leaders are thinking of stuff like this. We're looking two-dimensionally. We're looking underneath the hood. We're way up there looking down on it. We're looking on the sides, all these different angles. Whereas if you're just working it, you may just be looking straight ahead. Leaders have to look in a variety of different ways. The thinking is different. Constantly trying to anticipate problems, prevent problems, solve problems when they appear, build capacity, raise people's consciousness and confidence and competence. That's how leaders think. So we have to develop all those things. And that's not always easy, but that's what we have to do. So I hope that is exactly right, Sister Lena. We have everything we need. We have everything we need, all the components. They're just not all connected. You know, we have civil engineers, mechanical engineers. We got people that can do construction, interior design, architecture, teaching, scholarship, military, everything under the sun. But I want you to think about it. How did we get that? How did we get that knowledge? The people that started the black militias, how did they get that knowledge? They got it, most of them, by being in the U.S. military. Now this is where it gets this is where we can't be too rigid with the ideology, too fundamentalist. We can't join the white man's army. Listen, family. Where do you think most of the people? Where do you think the deacons of defense in Louisiana? How were they able to know about munitions and offensive and defensive procedures? How are they able to guard Dr. King and other civil rights activists with arms? They were in the military, family, obviously. So what we're saying here is don't do it accidentally. Be proactive. If you know you want to know how to lead and how to govern, because governing is a whole different creature, right? Governing means you got to be mature. You can't be one of these people. The person disagree with you, calls you out your name, you ready to fight them in the Congress. You can't do that, family. So the people that govern have to be extremely patient, think long term. They don't make decisions just for now. They're thinking long term. They have to know how to build alliances with different people, even people with whom they disagree. We need ambassadors. We need people that can go to territories where we got beef. And they smooth and they cool and they calm and they know how to say the right things. And they build relationship with these people and they are ambassadors. They go and they de-escalate problems. We need all of those things for a nation, right? And we have to coordinate them properly. And we got to get our people to see we don't all got to dress exactly alike, think exactly alike, have the same hairstyle, or change all our names, family. There are nations where there's all types of different people, like the country in the United States. We have to get mature. We have to put all the outdated, overly rigid, heavy on rhetoric, light on infrastructure ideologies. You got to put that down. We know we need a nation. How do we put together the components of a nation? What things should our kids be going to school for that they enjoy doing and that we need in the future? Right? All of those, that's how we should be thinking. So right now, everything we do things very haphazardly. But when you start thinking about, man, I want to have a nation in the next 20 years or 10 years, what things do we need? You're going to move differently. Your decisions will be different. Your thinking will be different. And I'm hoping, family, that I will, in my small way, contribute to us having that type of thinking. So that's it, family. We presented our 5 challenges to nation builders. Sister Elena, I thank you for coming on. I feel kind of how do I want to say, a little vindicated or validated with somebody like you that's kind of co-signing, because Sister Elena is one of the people that takes a lead in this particular thing when we talk about nation building. I mean, she's been trained, she's going to other countries, she's, she knows her stuff. She has her own organization. Sister Elena, if you're still there, feel free to leave the link to your website and your organization. Feel free to do that so that people can follow up with you. Sister Monica Kusu, my sister, thank you. How you doing? I hope you're well. I hope your daughters are well. I also want to tell people that Harlem Liberation School is working to come back into a brick and mortar situation. I will keep you all posted on that. And I am really happy to say that, because I think the online piece is really good because we can reach a wider scope of people. But we need to have that face-to-face interaction. That's very important. So, okay, Sister Elena put her, I'm going to show that on the screen. pendoforfreedom.org. Go check it out, family. See what was being cooked up there. If you support it, support it. Like, if you support it intellectually, psychologically, now support it physically and financially. That's all. Thank you, Sister Monica. Same to you. Thank you very much. And with that said, family, yes, you must talk. Absolutely, Sister Elena. We got a lot of work ahead of us. A lot of work. I'm teaching high school now. And I tell you, we got a lot of work. And not in a bad way, though. I'm very optimistic and hopeful. I believe that everything we have to do, we have the capability to do. It's going to take some hard work and some sacrifice. That's all. With that said, family, I want to say thank you, peace, and Black power. And I believe if we study rigorously, if we try to love on each other despite the pain and the hurt, if we try to learn to trust each other, and I believe also that if we study nationalism and Pan-Africanism and different liberatory ideologies and work together, 3 words come into play. We will win. But you got to trust and know it and believe it. Peace and Black power, family. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Peace. And don't forget to subscribe.